Hello and welcome. This is the Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast, and I'm your host, Chani Nicholas. All right, y'all. In this episode, we are looking at the week of February 27th, which I'm pretty excited about because on March 1st, Venus, the planet of connection and love and desire and sweetness and attraction and magnetism, comes together with Jupiter, planet of bounty and abundance and prosperity and wisdom and knowledge and all good things. They join forces in Aries. Now, this is a sign that burns bright and hot and is really fast and is really emergent. So good things or anything that happens in Aries isn't necessarily about being long lasting. Like it's not slow burn, build towards something. It is all of a sudden getting swept up into some kind of like wildfire fervor and feeling like there was nothing before this moment and maybe there's nothing after it. It's just kind of all consuming. And again, it might come in and just flare up and then kind of die out, or at least like burn up really quickly and then goes off and does something else. So the goodness that we're talking about this week might be something that feels like a flash in the pan. So what do we do with astrology like that? Well, we can work with it because, in order to build a warm hearth, we need a spark. We need to light a match. But the match is not supposed to keep us warm. The match is supposed to ignite the kindling, to build the fire. I don't know if you like my metaphor, but there we go. That's what it is. That's what we've got today. So we're looking at this astrology as something that can spark. Think of it like a match or like a flint. It's not supposed to be here forever. It's not supposed to be enduring, but it can spark something that can turn into something else. It's here to get our attention or here to help us get the attention that we want. It is a little bit of an alarm, and the alarm says there's something good here. Like, hey, the cake is ready kind of feeling. Like, oh, we're being alerted to the fact that there's this beautiful signature happening in the sky. And again, it's not here forever. It's just momentary. And you can't get it right and you can't get it wrong. I know sometimes I say like, oh, wow, this beautiful astrology is coming. And people feel so disappointed because it doesn't turn out the way they think it should. Try to come into being with the astrology so that you're not judging how it shows up. You're actually just witnessing it. Think of, if you will, astrology as a mirror. The heavens are mirroring something that's happening down on earth. So if we gaze into a mirror, we're kind of like in a moment of being reflective, right? We've got to take in our reflection. If astrology is a reflection of what's happening, then we can use it as a point of meditation. And therefore, we don't have to get hung up on how it should manifest in our life or what it should mean, because our brains get a little bent out of shape and very twisted about how things should actually be instead of appreciating what they actually are. So my recommendation is to listen to your reading on the Chani app if you're a subscriber, or read your horoscope on the app or on our website, chani.com, on March 1st, and think about what's being sparked for you. Again, it doesn't have to be the whole deal. It doesn't have to be a solution to your life. It just has to be something that's like, oh, there's a little flint there. There's a little sparkle. There's a little something that's grabbing my attention, that's making me think or experience something in a new kind of way. There is that feeling of something getting sparked here. And the most important thing to remember is that the area of your chart that contains Aries, again, we'll go through that in the readings this week, and you'll be, clued into it through the horoscope for March 1st. But the area of your chart that contains Aries is getting this blessing. So please don't look for like the biggest thing ever. I mean, maybe that's how it will show up for you, and great. But I really want you to just think of it, again, as a point of meditation. Like, what little thing is getting sparked in this area of my life? What little glimmer of hope or goodness or connection or sweetness or expansiveness am I experiencing point blank, or perhaps, again, in this area of my life, in the area of your chart that contains Aries? And it's just like a really good time to launch things. Mercury is not retrograde, but there's this launching energy with anything in Aries. And when the two planets that are about goodness and abundance and connection come together in that sign, it's like really prosperous launching energy. Again, we don't know the whole story. We're just looking at the quality of time that we've got to work with. And the quality of time that we've got to work with on March 1st says, oh, these are some really nice things happening. And it really feels like a burst of energy that's helping us to get started with something. The other thing to note is that anything that happens in Aries is governed by Mars. And Mars is now direct. So Jupiter can do some really good things now, things that it couldn't do from August to January, especially. So it feels like we're being like let out of some kind of holding pattern. And again, this is about burst of energy. This is about kicking something into high gear. This is about putting that little flame under our ass and being like, all right, I'm going to go now. And again, because Mars rules Aries and it's now direct, the goodness can go forward, or can help us to go forward. So look for those little sparks and those little pushes and those moments of encouragement. Maybe it's from like a neighbor or somebody on the street you don't know, or maybe it's from your best friend or your mom, or who cares who it's from. Take in all the encouragement and all the cheerleading that is headed towards you, and also be the source of it for other people. Because if Jupiter teaches us anything, a life of abundance is led because we lead, because we live our life abundantly and generously. Generosity is a gold mine in and of itself. And this day, March 1st, is the day to be generous and to also, be grateful and be very expressive in our gratitude for the generosity that we receive. Then on March 2nd, there's something that happens that is a completely different tone. Mercury, the messenger, and Saturn, the disciplinarian and the queen of structure and boundaries, come together. And this is a really beautiful day to make some kind of oath. This is about our words having a long-lasting impact. So, opposite of what I just said about Venus and Jupiter in Aries being like a burst of something and it not being long-lasting, also, the next day, there's something that is. So be mindful about what you say yes to, what you agree to, and be very conscientious about how you're conversing, because it does have a long-lasting impact and effect. And it is something that can really help us to see consequences in a way that is definitive, which is always good. Like, oh yeah, when I say yes to that, it means I have to actually say no to this other thing. So it's a really good day to meditate on what I'm saying yes to, and by that very fact, what I'm saying no to, and how I can be very clear with myself about that. I find myself and a lot of people that I know want to say yes and don't want to say the no part. We want a lot of things, but really making peace with the fact that every yes is also a no, and every no is also a yes, can be very clarifying and actually puts us, I think, more into our power. The other thing is that Saturn's about to leave Aquarius. Like, these are the last moments of Saturn in Aquarius. So it feels like we're also getting the message about what Saturn in Aquarius has meant for us collectively, but also personally. this is a really fascinating moment because Saturn's almost finished. And then Mercury zooms up right next to it and was like, hold on, what was that about? What was the lesson that you just learned over the past 2.5 years about commitment and boundaries and saying no and structure and being in integrity in this area of your life? What was that again? Maybe let's just put that in writing. So it feels like a little finishing off kind of moment, and also something that might feel like it ties everything together, or at least the main themes together for us regarding Saturn in Aquarius. And then Mercury slips into Pisces really quickly, also on the 2nd, also on Tuesday. And Mercury in Pisces is much different than Mercury in Aquarius. Mercury in Pisces is like, what are facts? Everything is a opportunity for us to take poetic license. More on that in a moment, or in the weeks to come. But on Friday, we've got Venus making the conjunction to Chiron. So that ties us back to the theme we were talking about in the beginning, which is something very poignant about healing our relationships, healing our relationship to ourself. It is happening in Aries, and finding some kind of teacher, the teacher within, I hate to say healer within, because I think we get that really misconstrued and we get all like in our ego about it, but it is about the healer archetype and being in connection with it. So if some really important relationship stuff comes up on Friday, then you can say, hey, Venus and Chiron, I get the mirroring. I'm understanding what you're reflecting to me, and meditate on it. How is it showing up in your life? And what do you feel like you're actually healing? And the problem is we want healing to be easy, and healing is hot, right? There's that feeling of like, oh my God, this thing is going to burn me alive, or I am going to burn up from it. Or, there's that feeling of sometimes, not all, but sometimes it's like being kind of swept up in that flame, being inflamed. And if something comes up this week about that, know that that means you're on to something. When we feel that heat, when we feel like our temperature rise and our blood start to boil and all of that, we know that we're like on the edge of understanding where our energy has been stifled, where our power has been compressed or maligned. We're on to something that has a lot of energy stored into it. So we have to respect it and acknowledge its kind of power and its presence. And we don't want to be overwhelmed by it or like all consumed by it or like fixated on it. But it's just to be like, oh, that feels like it's got some heat to it. That means it's really important. And I'm going to take my time and I'm going to get to know what this is, but I'm not going to ignore it. And, there might be just like this really lovely healing moment for you in regards to relationships, connection, beauty, love, art, desire. That also happens on Friday. It's a great day to go look at some art, especially from artists that were really ahead of the time or really phenomenal contrarians, because that's Venus in Aries. Endless gratitude for folks that have left us a review in the App Store and rated the app. We just appreciate it so much. Here's one review I wanted to share with you from recent. It is titled, "Those Transcripts." I've never written a review twice for an app, but I'm coming back specifically to report how much I love the transcripts for the Week Ahead podcasts. I always listen to the podcast while walking the dog, and sometimes I go back to the transcript to let a particular point sink in, or I return later in the week. All to say, please keep the transcripts. Don't worry, we will. I'm wildly impressed by the content on this app. So good. All right, y'all. Sending you lots of love. Many, many, many Venus, Jupiter conjunction blessings. I'm crossing all my fingers and toes. May this just feel like a lot of love and a lot being kindled in us with a lot of ease. Bye for now.